starting with laughter.
Yeah.
It shows how I'm excited to see Harriette.
I'm excited too, Sika. I'm excited too.
You know, and I keep saying Harriette has my older sister's name, Harriette. And so we keep shifting from big sister to small sister. Big teacher. You wouldn't add it.
But you are my big teacher and my big coach.
Small teacher.
And
I'm looking at you today at 65, and I'm saying you're really loving yourself. You're really loving yourself. You know, many times people feel loving themselves means going to the spa or taking a walk. Is that all there is to loving yourself? Could you tell us something about loving? What is it? What is it, loving yourself? What do you mean?
Being you. But that is if you know who you is, right? So being you, doing something you love. And so if you don't enjoy the spa, then going to the spa won't mean you're loving yourself. So you really need to decide on what you love, what you want, what you enjoy doing. For some people, it may even mean doing things for other people. And if that is when you feel like you're loving yourself because your nature is a giving one, then don't throw it away. Don't let somebody else define what it means to love yourself for you.
Okay. So share with me, was there a point in your own life where you felt, I'm not really loving myself, I have to create a shift?
There have been different points in my life. And I think it's come from, sometimes I feel we never get to fully know ourselves. So we continue discovering ourselves. And depending on how much of yourself you know, you're able to give yourself a lot more variety and enjoy a little more. And that's why it's important to make it a point to get to know who you are. So who is Harriette? And if I never get to know who Harriette is, then I can't feed Harriette what she wants. So at different points in my life when I have learned, then I would be able to find something that satisfies that need. But especially for professional women who tend to provide services to other people, there are all kinds of clients. There are people who don't even know what they want. So you create a need awareness before you fulfill the need. And for us as well, there are times when you need to be aware of your need before you can fulfill it. And that's what I mean by getting to know yourself. So if you don't know you need it, then you don't even know.
So when did Harriette not love herself? At what point in your life was there a point in your life where you realized that, how do I know that I'm not loving myself?
For most of us, we won't know. I think we will know we are not fulfilled. We're most of the time not happy. We're not happy with anything. We have problems with everything around us and with everybody around us. But even then, we don't know that is because we haven't discovered ourselves and we haven't found ways of loving ourselves. But for me, I think that, I come from a broken home. And I keep saying this so that it resonates with both those who have and those who don't have. That really, if we are going to be, and I believe that we are the creators of our own life. God has given us that authority. Create what we want. And so if I'm the creator of my own life, and I'm the author of my own story, and I really understand that, then I'm on a journey to discover and write as I go on. And I typically like to write in pencil, a pencil that has an eraser at the back. Because I like to cancel, erase, go back, pick it, go forward, and so forth. And I think, we have to feel free to explore and be confident with making a mistake. So I thought I would like this. I tasted it. I didn't like it. So I've stopped doing it. And that kind of thing. And just go on and discover for yourself and enjoy it and create what you want and delete what you didn't like and so forth. But for me, again, going back, I come from a broken home. By the time I was 6, my parents were no longer together. So when I was 6 years old. So I really don't know mom and dad, siblings in the same home. And some of my older brothers are much, much older than me. So I only met the one before me. We grew up together. But the first two, my mother and my father had 4 children. Okay. And we're my father's first 4 children, but not the only children. But we're the 4 children of my mother. I'm trying to explain it in a very, yeah. So I grew up, by the time I was growing up and I was aware of my surroundings, my older 2 brothers had left home. Okay, so it was my brother before me and myself. And I keep saying, one of the things later on I was to discover was to shield myself. I certainly must have felt weird and funny not having a father figure in my home. But this was nothing that was discussed. And I never really asked anything about it. But I found a very good way. I'm very good at isolating myself. I can create a boundary around myself and create my own world. So there may be chaos around me, but I'll create my own small world and live in it and figure out how to live in it. And I think that, and this is in answer to your question as to when did I know. So I think for the longest time, because I was good at doing that, I didn't even know what loving myself is, and maybe this boundary may have kept me from experiencing the real world and knowing whether I'm loving myself or not. But that's how I survived it. Living without my father, he'd come and visit and go away. I'd go and visit in his home on holidays and everything. But there was no there was no home, a place. I had a home where my mother lived, also how I grew up. And I grew up with my aunties, a female-only household. You know, my grandmother, my aunties, my mother. But I keep saying my household was run like an organization. The chores were clear, expectations were clear. These women ran the house like nobody's business. So things got done. But all these things, underlining things, never got spoken about. We just went about and did it. So I'm not sure, the early part I'm not sure. But I think as I went along in life, there were things I would be unhappy with. There were things I didn't like doing that everybody liked doing. And I still am a little uncomfortable with that kind of thing. And I don't know whether it's coming from my childhood, but whatever it is. These days, what I have learned to do is to go deep and find out. If everybody is going to this party, do I really want to go? Or am I going because everybody's going? And I suppose with age, if I don't feel like going, I'm not going.
You said something that was very powerful. You said we are the creators of our own life.
Yeah.
And knowing how you have created yours, in spite of how yours was, I mean, how your upbringing was, your father was in the picture, and seeing how you have created yours with your, children, and how would you say that you can begin to create for yourself the love that you may not have gotten?
You can. And I think one of the things I did early in life is when I would go visit in my friends' homes, I watched everything. You know, there are a lot of things that I learned from friends, parents, how the homes were set up, the way they related to each other. And I just thought it was beautiful at the time. So when I had the opportunity, I got married and things, there were things I wanted to do with mine. And I would say that. So I think my friends are aware that I like to do mine. Listen, a part of me, maybe if you hear some of the things I say, you say, Harriette is a feminist. I really don't understand what feminism means because, you just want to be you and enjoy it, but whatever it is. So if you hear me sometimes talking assertively, you will say I'm a feminist. If you see me sometimes in the way I serve my husband, the way I love to do it, you will say, but this is the same girl who was saying something and was so assertive and everything, and look at what she's doing. Listen, I live my own life. And it's not because I'm deceiving you. I think it's important that there be respect amongst the sexes. We all respect our roles, children, husbands, wives, helpers, everything. The proper thing must be done. But I refuse to have people define for me who I am or how I express my love to anybody, a friend, a husband, a child, That is my son. And if I choose to love him this way, I'm not going. No, I don't, and I don't have to explain it to anybody. I mean, he is an adult and he should be able to tell me, Mommy, maybe this one, I'm not sure I like it. Yeah, that I would take. But if my son is enjoying it and I'm enjoying it, I'm not taking.
So how has loving yourself, Harriet, impacted your work as an engineer? I know you've gotten several awards. How has it impacted your work as a female in a not predominantly, these days a lot of people are doing it. However, it's an area that, has been known to be predominantly male. How has loving yourself helped you in your career?
Sika, one of the things I've just tried to be Harriet as best as I can and the best as I know how at any point in my life. Because I've also been growing and getting to know myself.
Who is Harriet? You said I'm trying to be Harriet as best as I can.
At this point in my life, and I think in the last few years, when people ask me who Harriet is really the daughter of the Most High God. And that gives me resources, confidence, power that I've never had. So if I live my being an engineer from the place of being the daughter of the Most High God, then apart from the obligations that puts on me, I have the resources to match it. So one of the things I do, I'm saying I come to engineering as Harriette Amissah-Arthur. Harriette Amissah-Arthur, the woman. Harriette Amissah-Arthur, the career woman. Harriette Amissah-Arthur, somebody who wants and would love to live in a society that's excellent. I come from a place where even though my mother didn't have much, she did not compromise on excellence. Excuses were not accepted in our household. And I think that it doesn't matter what you do, the excellence should come there. So when I come to engineering, I bring my caring. I'm a woman. And therefore, when I'm in a space identifying a problem that needs a solution, it can only come from who I am. The way in which I will identify the problem, the way in which I will design the solution comes from who I am. It's in the same way in which, even though we all make gravy, we make a difference. Man has, the way in which they do.
Give me an example of how you bring your womanhood into a problem as an engineer, and you're loving yourself into breaking down that whatever it is in the work of an engineer.
You see, as my work, in my work as a consultant, especially in our area of consultancy, most of the time, the bigger guys, those who have the resources, write the terms of reference. And they will advertise it, or people who know them will get to know, they will respond to it, and and so forth. They will select which of the consultants they want to work for and so forth. I kind of think that it's more effective to take your time to get to know the people. I have the patience to just develop the relationship. Just develop, get to know people. So when I hear, I love one of the great places where I do a lot of thinking is sitting in a conference. Because as people are talking, all kinds of ideas come into my mind. And then as people are talking, I get to know the way they think. So I get to decide whether I want to develop a relationship with them. So I approach them, I get to know them, we have general conversations about the sector in which I work, which is energy. But also I've done development work before, so I don't do energy in isolation. I do energy also as a development worker, and so when I come into it, I prefer to develop the relationships because I believe that a lot of times, if I'm sitting in Ghana and I know the communities in Ghana, and the person who's writing the terms of reference is writing it out of Washington, he can't possibly know the problem as well as I do, or know the solutions that will work as well as I do. So if I develop a relationship with a person, I can influence how that terms of reference gets written.
That's the loving and woman part of it.
And it becomes more effective because I get to influence it right from the start, or you develop the relationship to the point where they actually show it to you to see if you have comments before it comes public. So once you do that, you know that the impact of the intervention can be much bigger. You can enlarge it. Now, the other thing you get to do is they get to know you and who you are and the way you think and what you bring to the table. So sometimes some of the things they want done, they don't even advertise. They give you a call. And for me, I think this is how really the world works. But a lot of times, especially in the professional field, we like to wait. They say that terms of reference is coming, we are waiting for it. And when it comes, then we respond to it. I kind of think that's a little restrictive, but also we're not able to optimize the outcomes for the projects we do. So that's how I come, and I'm very comfortable just laying back and having 10 relationships at different levels brewing, and just sitting back and do that. But I have to also tell you that at this point in my life, I can afford to do that because, we have a firm, and that is going, and is doing well, and therefore, I can spend the hours to develop the relationships and nurture them and stew them so they're ready.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I love myself. Take me through your steps. What steps? If I, like a teacher, do I have to go through? Give me your own steps.
So I'm going to say a few things and then I'll take you through my typical day.
Okay.
I think we need to constantly ask ourselves, who is Harriette? Who is Harriette? Who is Harriette? My answer this afternoon will be different from my answer later and so forth. But it's important to keep asking that question because there's so many aspects of Harriette. And every time you ask it, you find that from that place, you will get an answer that enriches you. So one, I keep asking myself, who is Harriette? Who is Harriette? And then I also ask myself, what's Harriette's brand? But not the branding in the way, I mean, who do I belong to? To whom does Harriette belong? And I'm saying that because from their household I grew up, my mother always reminded us, remember who you are. So as always, we don't do these things. Remember who you are. And even when you did something that was not okay, she would make comments like, I know this is not you. You've just made a mistake, but this is not you. And I think it's important when we have made mistakes to remind ourselves that this is not us. We are not our mistakes. We are not our failures. We are not our weaknesses. And continue to ask, yes, I've made a mistake now. I've had a failure now. But who am I? And sometimes, especially at the times when you fail, you get some really, really great answers. Who am I? So it's important. And whose are you? Because if I'm able to answer that question properly, then I don't allow even myself, I don't even allow Harriette to treat Harriette anyhow because of who Harriette is. I mean, who's Harriette is. So there are quite a few things in my house. There's some of it that I can kick when I see on the floor to push aside. There's some of them that when I see, I pick gently because of the value of that item to me. So it's important that we keep reminding ourselves. So those are the two questions I asked. Because, again, for me, in the last few years, and I can't really talk without talking about this because several times I'll say, you see, I come from a Christian home. I was born into a Presbyterian home. And so the culture I came to meet was you will go to church, you do your morning devotion, all those things. But I just did them. And even after, I became free and went to university and I had my freedom, it had become a part of me. I will go jam the whole week, but Sunday morning I'll be in church. It's not to say that there's anything wrong with jamming, but I will go to church. It was part of me. And when I was married, I was going to church and I was doing all of that. But I really would say maybe it's only been about 15 years ago that I own my relationship with God. This is my relationship. This is not what my mother passed on to me. It's very different because, when I'm doing something, I remember whose I am. When I used to just go to church because that was how I was brought up, I didn't pause to ask that question. So I still err, and I still make a lot of mistakes. I get angry when I shouldn't get angry. I speak to people the way I shouldn't be, but I very quickly get convicted. Very quickly. When I'm done, even before I'm done, I know I shouldn't have said it that way. So that's the difference, because I'm operating from a standard. You know, so when I deviate now, I feel it. If I feel it, you know, that this wasn't okay.
So you're saying, knowing who Harriette is, knowing what Harriette's brand is, knowing whose Harriette is, right? Three ways you would say helps you to gradually begin to love yourself.
Yeah, I would even say the two things I've said, because the brand depends on whose you are. Okay. You know, yeah. Okay. The Mercedes-Benz brand and the Mercedes-Benz brand belongs to that company. You know, so depending on what value you're putting on it, your brand is whose you are.
Interesting. Let me ask
That's my definition of it.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt that maybe people say that as African women, we are taught to love everybody else? You know, make sure your husband is fine, make sure your kids are fine, make sure your pastor is okay. Everybody must be happy with you.
Yeah.
And to some, they do it so much that they forget about themselves. Would you say, how would you relate that to loving myself? Making sure that everybody is okay and perhaps forgetting you. What would you say about that?
You shouldn't forget yourself. I mean, you shouldn't. And I've done it before, I'm sure, and I've done it in several ways, but we shouldn't. And that's why this loving calls for intentionality, because we've been conditioned in different ways. And unless you're intentional about, do I want to do it the way I was taught, without any modification, no alteration, no revision, no reflection on what I'll do, not getting to understand why I'm doing it, then if that's what you want, and if it makes you happy, then maybe that's your version of loving yourself. And I'm not going to ask you to stop. I'm only asking you to reflect on what you're doing, and where you're standing right now, and what you're thinking, and how you're feeling. And listening to yourself. Why are you feeling that way? What is it that has happened? I mean, and what can you do about it? So we shouldn't, it's wrong for us to forget ourselves. That I'm almost sure of. That it's wrong to forget yourself. Because if you do forget yourself, you even shortchange the people you say you are loving. I think so. I mean, if you don't know yourself, Sika, what are you bringing to those people? You know, so for me, I want to bring the best of Harriette. I want to enjoy the best of Harriette. And I want to bring the best of Harriette to the world. For those who want to enjoy her, to enjoy her. And there are people who won't enjoy the best of Harriette. And that's fine. That's completely fine. Okay, the thing is not to want the whole world to love you. They won't. They won't. So do your best. And for me, why at this time of my life I'm feeling even more confident about it, is I'm confident about the standard I have adopted. And the standard is God. So when I'm doing it, if somebody doesn't like it, I don't worry too much about it. If God is happy with it, and if it's aligned to what I think God is happy with, I don't worry too much about it. The person may come round or never come round, too bad. I mean, I'm not going to force anybody. I'm just going to do what I think is right and enjoy Harriette as well.
So let me shift to how we met. And just to help you share, many times smart, successful women, engineers like you, feel that, oh, you know, I have to keep my issues to myself, and, you know, just recollecting how we met, how, you know, Harriette used to have this, people come and speak to your family, particularly the kids. They are not kids anymore, married children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
And you would invite somebody to come and speak, And Harriet invited me to come and speak to them. And when I came, in fact, when I entered, I saw Harriet scanning me from the top. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. You know, and then after the engagement with your kids, we loved each other. Then the whole process of coaching came into it, and I just want you to share with us how coaching has impacted your life and family, because you opened your whole family to me, and I would like you to share with us smart, successful women how they stand to benefit from coaching.
I don't know if you remember how we ended up opening our whole family.
You share.
Because that day you came to share with us, and we were doing 2 families. We were doing this day. We invited you. We were in the home of our friends.
Yes.
And when you stepped in, most of our children are boys.
Yeah.
So between us, so these people you talk to are young men who, when they were much younger, it was easier to manage them, and now they're feeling like, what's all this about? So that day you walk in, they wanted to watch their football game.
Yeah, I remember.
So I figured that, are we going to start it? They're like, oh, what's all this? And something just snapped, and I came and said, boys, listen. Somebody takes their January 1st off to come to speak with you, and you think football is what you want to be watching. We provided the resource. Decide what you want to do. And we left because the model that we were operating was the parents will introduce the resource to the resource person to the young people, and we go out completely, and you do your talking completely with them, and you tell us some general things, nothing specific about what went on, but they have their conversation with you. And we get to learn some things that we never knew about our own children. But my point is, if you remember how we opened up, after you had left, one of my sons, who was most vocal, we don't even know came to me and said, Mommy, can you give me Auntie Joyce's number? And I'm like, what do you need? And I was like, I want to go and talk to her. I said, really? Okay. So I do that, and later on, both of them come. And they're like, we think you and Daddy should speak with Auntie Joyce. That's how we ended up opening our home to you. You spoke with all of us. You spoke with the boys, continued to coach them, you coach their wives, you counsel them when they're going to marry them. So that's how we opened. I'm using that as an example to show how the power of coaching and what it does for people. Because for me, especially for my family, I didn't grow up knowing that coaching was a tool I could use to help me grow and become my best self. So for many years, I never went through coaching. But these are young ones who have the opportunity to sample it and have it as a tool in their toolbox. And I honestly think that as we go through life, we actually gather different tools and put in our toolboxes. So that as we encounter issues, and we will encounter issues, and even on a good day, we will do much better with a coach, we know when to procure a service that will help us overcome some of the things we're dealing with, or to design a new life that we want, or just to have a conversation, an important conversation with ourselves. I call conversations that matter, and that we can have it with ourselves. And sometimes you need a mirror as you are having the conversation. That's what I think that's what I think coaching did for me. Because there were several times when we were having the conversation, say, Harriette, am I hearing you say? Is that really what you want? What are your next steps? If you were to do that, do you see the impact? These are things that sometimes, not sometimes, but most times, if you're doing it yourself, you don't get to ask yourself those questions. And yet, they are very important questions if you're going to arrive at a destination, a good destination, as fast as you should. Because life is exciting, there's a lot more to discover. If it will take a day to do it, you don't want to do it in a year. Yeah. It's all I'm saying, because there's a lot more to discover. So for me, that's what coaching has done for me. Yeah, it's been extremely useful. And it feels good as a mother to know that instead of letting my sons wait and my daughters wait 40 years to get to know this too, I introduce them to it much earlier. And it's really their choice now, at least they know it. So whether they use it or not, they will not say that they never got introduced to it. I didn't get introduced to it, so I never got to decide whether I wanted to use it or not. But they have it now. So it's their choice. They can decide how.
Okay. We're going to have a master class together. How we do expect. How we be loving myself.
You know, one of the things I like doing is, I think most of the books in my library are not engineering books. They are self-development books of all kinds, podcasts, CDs, and these days my love is audibles because it was introduced to me by one of my beloved daughters. And it makes me go through the books like nobody's business. I love it. Now, so every time I would have listened to a good book, I will come away with different tools. You know, so if I'm going to love myself and the way in which I get to really enjoy it is to change the diet, change the packaging, change the color, change the way in which I do it, then I have to continue to grow and also, more importantly, walk the read. You know, there are too many times when I would read a book and I'll see some ideas and I'm like, wow, this is a great idea, but that's what it takes. Put the book down with the idea, never practice it, end of story. I've moved beyond that. I listen to the book for a long time. If I have to go, come again, because now I'm just listening. Do it several times. It allows me to take one or two things I'm actually going to practice. Because then it allows me to walk it till it becomes a part of me. As I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm not thinking, I'm not breathing intentionally. Breathing is a part of me. I can be cooking and breathing, walking. When I'm asleep, my body is breathing. So it's become a part of me. Some of the important things I learned about how to love myself. And for me, loving myself and living is really a very important part of living my best self. Then, you know, it's important that I practice it to the point where I don't even have to think about it. Then I can bag it and go on to the next tool and practice it till that one to become very much automatic and a part of me. So I'm hoping that in going through the series, we can bring just different ways in which people can do it. Different ways in which people can look at it. You know, because sometimes our inability to do it is because of the way in which we are looking at it. Recently, I was reading this book about praying circles around your children. And it was talking about how the blessings of God complicates our lives. You know, because, I mean, if marriage is a blessing to you, it's complicated your life. Because before you got married, when you want to go, you just take your bag and go. You don't say anything to anybody. When you go and you haven't come back, you don't give anybody a call. You know, when you live in the house, if you don't feel like sleeping, you just sit there in the field and so on and so on. Once you get married, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that because you don't expect the other person to do that. And you shouldn't do that. So you can call it a good complication. I mean, if you really want that company, it takes that. If you have company, there are ways in which you do things, that you communicate, and if you don't know how to do it, you learn how to do it, and so forth. So I'm just saying that I've really had some hard knocks in my life. You know, and one of the things, I've had quite a few hard knocks in my life. I think one of my, and Sika, just share this with you. I think one of my regrets, and I tell the young ladies in my life, that I was blessed with children. I went through the motions of bringing them up. But I think, knowing what I know today, I would have enjoyed them all. You know, I wasn't intentional about enjoying them as blessings in my life. And I think that with our busyness and stress and so forth, it's very easy to go through the motions and not enjoy it. You know, so I've told my children, and I've asked for forgiveness, but I've told them I'm not carrying any guilt with me. I did the best with what I had. But I'm just advising that it's their choice to decide whether they'll do the same or they'll do this differently. Because you actually can be married and not enjoy your spouse. You know, and see the person more as a burden than a blessing. So if we're intentional about that, then when we are cooking so that we enjoy together with our loved ones, it's not a bed. We're enjoying it. But we are loving ourselves. It's extending the love, and you are loving doing it because this is something you wanted that you got. You know, in loving yourself, you may want to get a new dress. When you're wearing the nice new dress, you don't say this dress is a bed. What is this? No, you wanted it, and it's nice, and it's looking good on you, so you're enjoying it. So the people and the lives and the relationships God has given you, and the work God has given you, to do, it's all so you will enjoy and you will benefit and really do that. So I'm hoping that in doing this series, we can look at it from different angles because it has to be an everyday walk, an every moment walk, if you like. Should I
I love this last statement, and then I'm tying it into the first one about creation, that we are creators. Yeah. And so it seems to me what you're basically saying is that loving yourself is something you create. It's not something you look for from outside of you. No. Right? It's something you create from inside of you. So give us your last word, profound statement. You have this statement, profound. What profound statement do you have?
So listen, even though you've asked me for one,
yes,
I will give you two.
Okay.
And the two immediate ones is what freed me to, in the last few years, what really has freed me to, one of the things I remember has freed me to enjoy what I'm doing. And the story about the tea in my office. Those are two things. Now, I think that one of the things that has freed me is that I woke up one day, as in sleep and wake up. But one of those conversations, or especially coaching with you, I got a revelation that actually I'm nobody's God. Actually, I'm not even Harriette's God. And so, if somebody was to make me, or try to make me their God, I have to remind the person I don't qualify to play that role in their lives. It has freed me. It's freed me in ways that I can't describe. I'm free. I'm free. I'm free in every sense of the word. And because I got free, I have freed my loved ones from the expectations I had of them that were not their role.
Yeah. They couldn't take ownership.
They can't. They are not in a position to fulfill me. Only God can. So being able to free myself has allowed me to free them of those expectations, even though maybe for most of them didn't even know that. I was in prison and I had taken them with me.
Yes.
So that is an important thing. We are not God. And if we would allow ourselves and allow Him to take care of us, He will amaze us. He will amaze us in ways we can never imagine. So that for me is really, really for me now. There are all kinds of things that can happen. Look at what is happening to our economy today. When I think about it and I'm fretting and I want to say, Harriette, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But you can take it to God. So when I hear some news I don't like, there's something called praying the news. You listen, a lot of the news you listen to kind of just sit on you. you have to learn to pray it. Give it to the person who is able to turn it into something useful so you can be free to enjoy. So recognizing that, Harriette Amissah-Arthur, you are not God in any form or shape to anybody. Know yourself. It's one thing that I'm hoping that as we go through this, in whatever form other people discover themselves, they recognize that you are not God, but you've been given the authority with His resources and His backing to create something amazing, so they will feel like doing it. And to sign off, I'm going to tell them the story of my tea. Please do. I was sitting in my office, and the AC was, I was feeling cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. So I will up it, increase the temperature, and then I'll decrease it and make it. And then at a certain point, I just decided, well, I'm just going to get myself a cup of tea. Nothing linked to the temperature stuff I was feeling. And I had the cup of tea. Just before I could have about 2 sips, I realized that I was just okay. The temperature was okay. I hadn't changed it for everything was okay. And I just had a revelation that said, the AC was sitting where it sat before I got my tea, when I was fretting. I got the tea was not on the outside, I drank it. And from the inside, I have become settled. And I'm sure in the colder climates where people drink tea to keep warm and things, they may have been told stories about it. But here when we drink tea because we want to drink it, not because we want to keep warm. So I've never really paid attention. I know sometimes when I'm drinking, it makes me too warm and so forth. But I never paid attention to it. There's something about the adjustment you can do inside that makes you all of a sudden want to be able to cope and see things differently. The circumstances may not have changed, but because you've changed what is happening on the inside, all of a sudden, things begin to, look different, and you are able to dream again, even within those same conditions and all of that. So I'm looking forward to sharing with ladies. Just relax. Allow yourself to be spoiled. And I'll spoil myself.